The United Nations is pointless, toothless, and morally corrupt. These are the words of Douglas Murray, who frankly wins the award for Truth Teller of the past year. He has written in the New York Post about reflecting on the past week of all the shenanigans at the United Nations. We saw just recently the president of the General Assembly, Guterres, not referring to Iran by name when they launched all those ballistic missiles at Israel, just saying, I condemn, the escalation in the Middle East. It was so appalling. But Douglas has summarized what is going on at the UN and how they just are totally morally bankrupt. And this is what he said. It's that most wonderful time of the year in New York. I mean, of course, the time when the United Nations General Assembly is in session. There really is nothing like it. If you can't get down a couple of blocks on foot, you can at least console yourself that some African despot is holed up in his 5-star hotel. And if you can't cross town in a car, then you can be safe in the knowledge that some Arab potentate is raiding the minibar in a hotel of their choice. But at least you know that the real action is going on on the floor of the United Nations. On Tuesday, it was Turkish President Erdogan of Turkey who was up. And from the main podium at the UN, he used an analogy that people like him enjoy using on First Avenue. Quote, just as Hitler was stopped by the Alliance of Humanity 70 years ago, Netanyahu and his murder network must also be stopped by the Alliance of Humanity. It's so disgusting. At the 79th General Assembly, the Turkish president also criticised the UN for failing to fulfil its original mission and instead becoming a dysfunctional structure. He's right on that last bit at least, but unfortunately he seems not to realise is that one reason the UN is dysfunctional is because it allows despots like him to use the stage to attack not only the country that is hosting them, but also our democratic allies. Of course, Erdogan is simply committing what this city's shrinks would call projection. Throughout his time in office, Erdogan has consistently locked up journalists, judges, and anyone else who stands in his way or criticises him. After what he claimed was a coup attempted against him in 2016, he locked up around 50,000 people. He has also continued a war of aggression against the Kurdish people, who have been denied a state of their own by Erdogan, among others. When faced with people like Erdogan, Vladimir Putin, the mullahs in Iran, and the terror-sponsoring slave state of Qatar, you'd have thought that the world's democracies would have a chance to shine. But then you would be wrong. It seems that when it comes to speeches before the UN, the Western democracies are not sending our best. Take the speech to the UN this week by the new British Foreign Secretary David Lammy. Lammy has the unfortunate habit that a lot of our politicians in America share, of thinking that he is the most important subject. In the same way that Tim Walz cannot answer a question on the economy without talking about the house in which he grew up in, so Lammy believes that there is no issue of international politics that cannot be brought back to his favourite chosen specialised subject, himself. This week, Lammy tried to make a big grandstanding address to the Russian delegation. He told the assembly, I speak not only as a Briton, as a Londoner, and as a foreign secretary, all of which is true, it is why he is there, but then he went on to try to talk about Russia's aggressive war against Ukraine. I say to the Russian representatives, on his phone as I speak, he said, his voice rising in anger like a schoolteacher telling off an errant pupil, that I stand here also as a black man whose ancestors were taken in chains from Africa at the barrel of a gun to be enslaved, whose ancestors rose up and fought in a great rebellion of the enslaved. Imperialism, I know it when I see it, and I will call it out for what it is, he said. Mr. Lammy was educated at a choir school in charming Peterborough, England. From there he went on to, among other places, Harvard. And while he is black, there is no special insight he could possibly have gained from ancestors he never knew, fighting rebellions he never saw. But this is par for the course in the modern West. Our politicians always tell us about themselves and pretend that they have some special insight due to characteristics over which they have no say. It was rude of the Russian representative to be on his phone, but people who invade sovereign countries often are rude. You might say it comes with the territory. And one thing that is very unlikely to scare them or subdue them is Western politicians behaving as though a good telling off in New York is going to rein in their behaviour. Our very own President Biden managed a similarly pointless intervention in world affairs during his time on the podium. On a rare break from the beach, President Biden told the General Assembly that there should be a ceasefire in the Middle East. Quote, now is the time for the parties to finalise its terms, bring the hostages home. Biden said, as if the terrorists of Hamas were listening and famously vulnerable to reason. Not content with not solving that conflict, Biden went on to say of the escalating war between Israel and Hezbollah in Lebanon, full-scale war is not in anyone's interest. Which isn't true. A full-scale war that stopped Hezbollah would be very much in the interest of the Christians and other minorities in Lebanon who have seen their country destroyed by the Iranian army in their midst. And it would be very much in the interest of the millions of Israelis who either cannot live in their homes in the north of Israel or have to spend every day going to bomb shelters to hide from the thousands of rockets Hezbollah keeps firing at them. Even as the situation has escalated, a diplomatic solution is still possible, said Biden, as though the body he was speaking to is not the same body that passed a resolution 18 years ago called 1701, a resolution preventing Hezbollah arms build-up, which the UN has done absolutely nothing to uphold. The world is full of bad people, and New York is chock full of them this week, but the world's democracies need leaders with the strength to stand up to them, and not just tell them where to go, but what we might do about it. I think Douglas is so right that, as he says at the end, he said, actually a full-scale war is very much in the interest of people who want long-term peace. We have got addicted to short-termism in the West. We have got addicted to this idea that if we can just stave off conflict for a day or two, then somehow that'll be fine. But of course, staving off ideologically hateful organizations, institutions, even ideas, all you do is bury your head in the sand and leave further, worse conflicts to emerge later on. So, no. It's not always right to have a ceasefire. Sometimes you need to go and eliminate the threat. And the United Nations clearly is one of those places that doesn't encourage that kind of moral clarity. That is very much short-termist, that's very much trying to protect special interests that are often corrupt. And so I don't think we as a Jewish people, as a pro-Israel community, should be looking to the UN as any kind of body that could be providing moral leadership. No, it is we who need to be giving that moral leadership. And that is actually very much the call of the hour for the Jewish people. The UN, among many other institutions that have been exposed for being morally bankrupt over this past year, whether it's NGOs like the UN and whether it's celebrity culture, media, politicians, academia, it's all falling apart. The moral bankruptcy is becoming more and more clear, and therefore it's actually falling to us, finally, as a Jewish people, to start articulating what is actually true morality. The world is actually, unlike perhaps in prior times where they gave so much faith into false ideologies, the world now is actually probably quite desperate to hear some moral leadership. If you've made it so far in this video, I have a request for you. JTV has been having a really big impact in spreading the truth about Israel and creating positive associations with the Jewish people, Judaism, and Israel. We've really grown a lot, particularly in the last year, and we're having a really significant impact, both for Jews and non-Jews. But I really want to take JTV to the next level so we can start to compete with the other big online media beasts that are often peddling anti-Israel content. And the way we're going to do that is to scale even faster. So I'd love to build a team where we have other presenters doing shows like me, that start doing documentaries, supplementary content, animated content, etc., etc. And to do that, I'd like to build a bit of a team. So what we're going to do is we're going to do one fundraising day, just one, where we try and build up some funding in order to fund such a team. Now, to do that, it's going to obviously require people to get involved. And I'm wondering if you would consider, if you're watching JTV content and appreciate what we do and want to help partner with us in taking this to the next level and spreading the truth farther and wider than ever before, I wonder if you'd consider partnering with us simply by running a page, a mini page on the fundraiser that we do, where you just reach out to your contacts on that day that we choose to fundraise and see if they'll all chip in. If you'd be up for doing that, of which I would be so grateful, then please click on the Google form link in the video description of this video, where you can simply just put in a few contact details. It'll be a very small commitment, as I say, literally just one day that we'll all agree upon as a collective community. But the impact is going to be so big. There's such strength in numbers. If we all pull together and do this, we can take this to the next level. And as I say, all of us can partner together in bringing and spreading the truth to the whole world. So please do consider clicking on that link, filling in the form, and I'll be in touch very soon to talk about the next steps. Small commitment, but a big impact. Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.